What is going on, guys? Phil here from Phil's Craft Corner. Today we are making these personalised scrunchie holders. Now, I didn't get to record a intro or outro for this video because it was kind of a bit of a rushed order. I was trying to squeeze everything in and get myself ready for having my tooth extraction. Hopefully that's okay for you guys. Let me know down below, and yeah, let's get into it. All I'm really using for this project is a piece of 5x2, this is 2.4 meters, and a length of 25mm dowel. Right, so the first thing I need to do is sand these down, because this 5x2 is pretty rough. It's supposed to be plain all around, but it's not. This is really rough on this side. If I had a planer, it'd be easier to just run it through that, but I don't have a planer, so I'm just going to have to sand this down with some 40 grit and work our way back up to 120. Obviously the dowel's okay, 9 times out of 10 they're nice and smooth. So yeah, I'm just going to go all over this with the 40 grit, going to sand it all down, and I'm going to cut it all to size. This was one of the most time consuming parts of this project. Like I said, if I had a thickness planer, this would be so much easier to do. I could just run it through there, there'd be nice flat surfaces, nice and easy to work from, nice and easy to reference from, and it had just saved me half an hour's worth of sanding. I sped this up super fast because there's no point in you watching me sand for half an hour, but yeah, it took so long. I went over with a pass with the 40 grit, and then I went over with a pass of 80 grit just before cutting, and then at the end I finish it off up to 120 grit. Now I've got it over to my miter saw. I brought my miter saw over to the workbench I was working on, and I found a happy accident that my screw box is the perfect height to rest material on for my miter saw. So yeah, it helps out. I ended up cutting the end off. It was about 10-15 mil off the end, because from the manufacturing there was a bit of snipe on the end, and it didn't look that great, which also helps because I had a piece to measure the thickness from, because I wanted to cut these square. So I just used the dimensions of the timber and I just cut it to that length, which ended up being 12 centimeters exactly. I went and got myself a stop block and then set that up, and I just chopped through all those pieces till I had all the pieces that I needed. Then I went back and did the exact same thing with the dowels. I cut these a little bit longer than what was required. I think it was 18 centimeters high, but I cut these at about 22, just to make sure that there was enough gap to fit them in securely. After that, I marked center on all of the bits of wood. To do this, I just used a piece of scrap wood, put it onto the corners, and then just marked a little cross into the center. Nice and easy. With the next batch, I managed to get my drill press from a big workshop and bring it down to my little workshop, and that made things a little bit easier. I just set the centre on one of them, then I put a couple of stop blocks there, set the depth on the drill press, and then I just went all the way through. 30 were done in less than half the time that it took me to do these 10, because I had to eyeball the depth and I had to make sure that I was holding the drill straight as well. So that was a bit of a pain, but I managed to get it done. And here we go with all of the drilling. This was probably the worst part of everything. It took so long to get done because I had to make sure I was holding the drill straight. I had to make sure that the bit was the right depth. I put a couple of marks on the drill with a marker pen to get my depth right. Some of them I had to come back to because I ended up marking 2 marks, because why would I make my life easier? But yeah, in the end they all managed to sit pretty straight. I was a little bit upset that this spade bit was 25mm, was probably about half a mil bigger than the dowels that were 25mm. There was a bit of play in there. I ordered a 24mm 4s and a bit, which was absolutely amazing, but the 24mm was about half a mil too small, so I went with the bigger size. And in a minute you'll see how I set 2 little triangles on the corners to make sure that I was holding the dowel straight while I was gluing them in, and it turned out okay. It worked out in the end. And then we get to every woodworker's favourite part, even more sanding. I went back with the 40 grit and I broke down all of the rough cut edges and any of the imperfections that I saw on any of the surfaces before I came back again after that with some 80 and then 120 grit, because I just finished this with 120. It doesn't need to be the most smoothest thing in the world. I wasn't putting a finish on these, they were just being bare wood and they were staying like that. So to glue these together I'm using this pseudo super glue. Normally I'd use Mitre Bond, but I'd run out of Mitre Bond. I couldn't get hold of it when I was trying to get some Mitre Bond, so this is basically the same stuff. It's a high viscosity glue with a spray activator. I just put some on the end of the dowel, put some around the edge of the bottom of the dowel. I gently popped it into the hole that I drilled and cleaned up any excess before spraying, and making sure that it was all square using the 2 little triangles that I had. I knew the corners of these were square because I'd cut them into squares and then sliced them down previously. I keep these handy for something like this, and it definitely does come in handy. You can put these into the corners or you can have 4 of these, but 2 is more than enough. If those 2 angles are 90 degrees, then the other 2 angles are going to be 90 degrees. Apart from when the wood that you're referencing from isn't exactly flat. 1 out of these 10 ended up being not as straight as the other ones, but it's only when you put them right next to each other that you noticed anything, and it was perfectly fine in the end. The other 30 that I did after these ones, they turned out much better because I'd flattened the wood off a bit more. If you can start with nice flat square wood, then you're 90% of their way there anyway. Now for the personalisation part. I squared this off in the laser. I put the scrap piece that I had as an offcut underneath the dowel to hold it up to stop it falling down, and I taped a piece of cork to the top to test it to make sure that it was centered, to make sure it looked alright with engraving. The depth on this engraving, it's out of focus. It's a lot more out of focus with the cork on the top because I'd focused to the right point on the wood itself, but it's still out of focus on the wood. If you're out of focus by between 4 and 6 millimeters, you get a much better engraving. You can go up to 10 millimeters, but you lose a bit of detail because the laser beam goes a bit thicker. But if you defocus your laser by between 4 and 6 millimeters, you get a much darker engraving and you still keep quite a lot of the detail anyway. Then once I was happy with that, I just went on to all of the final pieces and I engraved every single one of them. This was probably the most satisfying bit because I was right near the end of the job. Everything lined up pretty well. I just stuck it into the top left corner of the laser. This Omtech honeycomb grid did really well of holding it into the corner, and the spacer that I had at the back was perfect height for holding the dowels in. So these took about 5 minutes each to engrave. All I needed to do was place one in, make sure it was lined up okay, and then hit repeat on the laser, which is just the start button. It'll just re-engrave the last one that you did. And while I was doing this, I was assembling other things on my workbench, so it's not really that bad time wise if you're not just sitting and waiting for the laser to do. Just make sure you've always got something else to do. You can work on design work, you can work on another project, or you can start packing other orders. There's always something that you can do to be a bit more productive in the workshop, and that's the way I try and keep things together. And this is the final result. What do you think, guys? I think it turned out really well. Thanks for watching. As always, you're all amazing. Thanks for watching, subscribing, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you in the next video.